All right. It occurred to me what I really would like to come out of this class, what I would really like for all of us to be able to do when this class is done, or to be better able to do when this class is done. And that is to take any verse in the Bhagavad-gita and look at it and better understand its context and what it's saying to us. Because I think a lot of times we can look at a verse and it may appeal to us, but we don't really understand what's being said, or we may not understand why it's even being said at all, or why it was said here. Why did they drop this here in this chapter at this spot? We may not be able to understand really what it's saying. It may sound nice, but we don't really know the exact message that's being shared and its application in our own life. So what I would like is that by the time we're done with this class, that all of us are better able to understand exactly what this verse is saying through understanding its context, or through looking at it through different interpretive lenses. And that's where I kind of began with 3, right? I said there's 3 lenses that we could look at, and now it's up to 5. But we've really only talked about in depth, really about 2 of them. And I don't want to spend too much time going over them right now, but I want them to unfold as we move through. But as by tomorrow, we'll have discussed all of these in some depth. And then I just want to start to move through chapters quickly and ask all of you, what do you think about this section of verses? What do you think about this verse? Is it, if I look at it through the lens of the evolution and clarity, is it speaking on the level of wisdom? Is it speaking on the level of absorption? What do you all think? You understand? Is this the verses that we're reading now? Do they sound like, or are they referring to the Karma Kanda teachings, or maybe the Jnana Kanda, or maybe these are verses that are specifically about bhakti? Can we interpret that? Can we see that? And there's these other interpretive lenses that we can use as well, and we'll discuss each of them. Does that make sense to everyone? Everybody happy with that? That way, even if we don't cover everything, I think more important that we get this down. We develop our own interpretive lenses for the Gita. We can look at these verses, and something in us will click and say, "Oh, I see what he's doing here. Oh, yes, I know what message is going here. Now it means more to me. Now it's kind of, now this verse is speaking to me more." I wanted to. By the way, I got this wonderful gift from Arjuna Prabhu. Oh yes, yeah, everybody's excited. But so we discussed this evolution and motive quite in some depth on the first day, and I think everybody's got a better feel for that than they've had before. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And we discussed this quite a bit in the following days. This evolution and clarity, which I feel like it can be really helpful. Are you feeling better with that?
Yes.
Yesterday our last class, we tried to tighten that up a bit by really looking into what is jnana, what is knowledge. Does anyone remember what knowledge is? I want a hand raised rather than anyone calling out and saying that there are 3 categories that constitute knowledge. Does anyone remember that? This is crucial stuff. One of you must. Cat knows. She's going to try in any case.
Is it just the evolution and God realization, Brahman, Paramatman, and Bhagavan?
No. Nice try.
Oh, what was it?
No, remember, I'll say it again. That we looked at. Hey, oh my goodness, what a joy to have you here, Varshana. Please grab a seat. You're welcome. Part of the group now. You're in. This is my friend Varshana, wonderful devotee, and one of the world's greatest violinists. She doesn't like when I say that, but she's one of the world's top soloists. Yeah.
Wow.
But we won't embarrass her further. What was I saying? Knowledge. What is knowledge? It means analyzing 3 categories of energy. Yes, Vaishnavananda.
It's the understanding of the difference between the jiva, the Parampurusha, Purusha, and the field, the Prakriti.
Perfect. That's what we're looking at. Could you pull that slide up, please, Verity? So just to remind everyone, over here we got 3 categories of knowledge, right? If you understand these, then you have jnana. And it means understanding their differences as well as understanding how they relate to one another. This first category, I have it up here as in the number 2, but that's God, speaking about God, the Supreme, right? And then his energies. One of the energies is us, the jiva, the soul, right? We are the energy of God. There, he is Sat Chit Ananda. He is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. Therefore, we are made of eternality, knowledge, and bliss. We have the same. Just like this, there's the sun, which is the origin, and then there's the sunshine, which has the same energy of the sun, but one's dependent on the other. This is called jnana, knowledge, right? Then there's another energy, the material energy, which our bodies are made out of, and really the whole world that we're moving around in is made out of. And so that's a third category of energy. This energy comes from here. This energy also comes from here. This energy, the original energy, is never covered, never an illusion, covered by the material energy. But the jiva can become covered by that, can become confused by that, lose touch with its own nature, right? So this is conscious, this is not conscious, this is eternal, this is always shifting. This understanding these ontological categories of energy, 3 different categories of energy, each 3 having its own ontological truth to it. Does that make sense? Anybody cloudy on that? Do we need to tighten that up? Hopefully, as we continue, it'll become more and more clear, but this is called jnana. In other words, I can move through the world and say, well, how does this jnana apply, right? I see that my senses, which are made out of material energy, are controlling me. I see that my mind, which is made out of material energy, is controlling me, who in essence is, I'm beyond all that, right? But I become covered by that. So I'm being pulled by these desires. Let me really examine this. Let me understand the nature of this energy. It's always shifting. I'm trying to find shelter in it. I'm trying to find happiness in it. But even when I get it, it shifts and then it's gone. And then what do I feel? Suffering, pain, misery, right? If I learned that I'm not going to find my happiness here, but I'm going to find my happiness within myself and therefore in connection with my origin, well, that's solid because both these categories of energy are eternal, right? So why am I looking for eternal happiness in the temporary energy? It's always shifting. This is called jnana, right? Understanding these 3 categories is knowledge. But that knowledge can be merely theoretical, but when it matures and to the point where it's become integrated into how we see the world and perceive the world and respond to the world, then what do we call it? Wisdom. In Sanskrit, we'd say vijnana. We're calling it wisdom, right? That a little bit more clear for everybody now? Okay. Yes? Yeah, okay. All right. I wanted to just throw one more interpretive lens at you today, okay? Because these verses, they're going to come up, they get dotted throughout the first 6 chapters, and then they really start to come out in the middle 6 chapters. I should say this, and I haven't shared it with all of you before, but commonly, the great commentators on the Bhagavad-gita will divide the Bhagavad-gita into 3 sections. The first 6 chapters, the middle 6 chapters, and the last 6 chapters. Have you heard that before? Yes. Yeah? Okay. And so the first 6 chapters are about, well, we say here karma, but really karma yoga. They're about karma yoga. And we'll discuss that more today. The middle 6 chapters are about bhakti yoga. And the last 6 chapters are about jnana yoga. But really, they all relate to bhakti in the Bhagavad Gita. And that's why bhakti is in the middle. And we can discuss that a bit more as we go too. But in the first 6 chapters, they have a lot to do with karma yoga, but every now and then Krishna drops in a verse. And that verse, he talks about himself. And these verses are very powerful and meaningful, and something that we haven't seen really so much of in the Karma Kanda text of the Vedas or in the Jnana Kanda text of the... Thank you. Upanishads. Yes. And that is verses which I'm calling Krishna factor verses. Beyond all other considerations, exclusive devotion to Krishna awakens a higher principle of grace where he takes charge of the devotee's well-being. There's going to be many verses in the Bhagavad-gita where Krishna's going along and speaking on the level of knowledge, for instance. Control your senses. You know, you could find text about the need to control the senses in the Upanishads. But then he's going to say, control your senses by focusing them on me. On me, right? On me. And you get tremendous benefit by focusing on him. He's going to say that really all of this is just to bring you to that point. And you can forget everything else if you just do that. All that we hear about sense control, all that we hear about sacrifice, all that we hear about different types of practices and so on. These are all valid and they all work. Some of them are very difficult. Some of them are easier. Or just fix your mind on me. Just surrender to me. Bring your mind to me. And you don't have to worry about anything else. And that's concluded in Krishna's almost his last words. But his last message to Arjuna in the Bhagavad-gita. Does anyone know that verse? Let's get the microphone. Sorry.
I recall very much the 1854.
I was thinking a little bit later. 1866.
1866. Okay.
Does anyone know that verse? It's kind of the conclusive verse of the Bhagavad-gita. That's it. Sarva dharma parityaja. Take all the dharmas that we've been talking about in this whole book and been going on and analyzing and comparing, throw them all out the window. Essentially, that's what he's saying. Sarva dharma parityaja, mam ekam sharanam vraja, and just take shelter of me, right? Sarva dharma parityaja, mam ekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarva papebhyo. Don't worry about all the bad karma and all of that. I've got that covered, you know. He says, Ma Suchaha, there's nothing to worry about. How that is and why that is, we'll discuss more too. But these verses were going to come up again. They're going to get dropped in the first 6 chapters. It's almost like every chapter drops 1 or 2 of these in. But then when we hit the middle 6 chapters, it's like they're just full of these verses. Or the theme is like, this becomes the theme. Just think of me, right? Any questions about that? We're good? Okay. Verity, could you pull up the graph of the chart of the 2nd chapter? Okay. So we covered Arjuna's confusion, the early verses, and then we read these Jnanic verses. Do you remember that? It was 2 days ago, so maybe it's a little foggy. Can anyone tell me about these verses and what they were saying? Verses 10 through 30. Anyone remember that? Don't be afraid to get it wrong. Nobody? Anybody? One moment. There was one verse that mentioned about the material energy, but if you had to say there was just a basic theme that was really being covered there. No, it had not gotten to the gunas yet. William in the back.
Was it when Arjuna was saying, I need to go and renounce and become a yogi in the hills?
Well, that was happening earlier on, especially in the first chapter. He was speaking a bit like that, and a little bit of the early verses in the 2nd chapter. No, he was saying you're not your body. Remember? That the body is made out of material energy. It's temporary. We change them like we change our clothes. The soul is eternal. Right? Even in one body, even in one life, the soul stays the same, and we witness many bodies even in one lifetime. We go through different bodies, boyhood, childhood to old age. Learn to tolerate the external things that are always shifting, right? That way you'll be able to become eligible for liberation. Look at this world, look at this energy. Can't you see? Or he's going to say that great thinkers, knowers of the truth, have analyzed that things that are temporary, that are always shifting, that they are in a sense unreal, but that which stays the same, the soul, is actually real. So focus on the real. Don't focus on the body. Focus on the soul within the body. Do you remember those verses? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So what platform are those verses speaking on here? That's jnana, right? Understanding the difference between the material energy, the body, and the spiritual energy, the self, the jiva, right? Very clear jnana verses. But speaking these verses, Krishna looked into Arjuna's face, and what did he see? Huh? Yeah, he's still in the same place. He hadn't woken up. He didn't say, "Oh, you're right. What have I been thinking about? Okay, let's fight." No, he wasn't there. He was still just as confused and as full of anxiety, right? So then Krishna said, maybe I need to come down from the platform of jnana. He doesn't seem to respond to that. I need to get him to do his duty. It will be good for him to do his duty, to act dutifully here. He's not responding to jnana. What platform did he approach him on after? Karma, right? We have that here, right? And yes, karma viewpoint. So then and what was he saying in these verses? Who remembers what he's saying here? Yes, Arjuna.
He's basically making a decision to meet him where he is and give him all the reasons that if he chooses to think that these are the challenges, then these are all the positive things he'll gain by actually doing those things.
What were the things that he would gain?
The antithesis of what he's thinking. He'll gain all the things that a warrior should gain. He'll gain, people won't say bad things about him.
Yes.
He'll have all the things that a warrior is intended to do.
That's right. He's speaking in context of his duty, right? Duty right here. He's saying that if you do your duty, whether you win or lose, you win. You know, if you'll either win a kingdom, or if you die on the battlefield, you go to the heavens, you go to the higher planets, which is the goal of the karma kanda. Right? The karma kanda. So you can look at that section and see it through these he's speaking the same way that the four Vedas speak, the karma kanda, right? Do your duty, do the right thing, and reap good results. Because it seemed like when he spoke on the jnanic level, Arjuna wasn't responding. Okay? And he also said, yeah, you're going to suffer. People are going to say bad things about you. They're going to say you chickened out at the big moment. You're afraid. You're a coward. What could be more painful for you, Arjuna, than to have people saying things like that about you? So difficult. Now, that is in one sense, in this chart, that's low-level thinking. I'm worried about what people are saying about me. You haven't really understood knowledge. You haven't understood I'm not a warrior. That's knowledge, right? Duty is like you're a warrior. You need to do this. This is your duty. Knowledge means like, ultimately, I'm not a warrior at all. Temporarily, I'm playing this role. Everyone understand this jnana now? Right? This is the way the jnanis think, right? I'm not all these identities that I've adopted for some moment. These are artificial things that are imposed on me. They're not my true self. The jnana is always about trying to find the true self. There's a very famous analogy that's used by these philosophers, these jnanis. And they say, like, if you take a crystal, like a clear crystal, it's transparent, right? Mm-hmm. But if you put it next to a red rose, then it appears that the crystal has become red. You understand? Mm-hmm. Right? If I put that crystal in front of the red rose, the crystal is red. Mm-hmm. I take it away from the rose, the crystal is not red. So, but when it's in contact with that rose, it seems to take on the qualities of the rose. It seems like the rose is red. And it's saying similarly, the self, it's free of all these false identifications of this word, like warrior. You take Arjuna and then you put him in near the warrior, and then he feels like I am a warrior. It seems like he's taking on that quality. But that's just for a moment. And then time comes and he's not a warrior anymore. In his next life, he's born in a different way, right? So was he a warrior? No, he was just like the crystal's not red. So we're not, and there's a very famous verse. I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but maybe it's really important. Before one performs like their deity seva, their puja, right? Say someone has some deities that they worship at home. It's a ritual that one does on a daily basis to help retrain and reprogram the mind in bhakti. So just before actually doing the seva, what happens if I do it? If I do all the, there's certain prayers that are said, certain mantras that are chanted, certain things that are offered. But what's the challenge with doing a daily ritual? Will you?
Sometimes the intention.
Huh? The intention. Yeah, we can say the intention, or maybe even, devotion. The problem is that I may do it how? Routine. Mechanically. Yeah, all these things are true to get something, but the typical thing in ritual is that things that we do every day, they become routine. They become mechanical. We're doing it externally, but on the internal level, there's nothing happening. There's nothing alive, right? That's key. So before doing ritual, like that kind of deity worship ritual, archana, it's preceded by, or part of the practice, you could say it's preceded by doing something called bhuta shuddhi, which means it's like a purification of the self. What it means is, let's say I'm going to do this ritual for the next 20 minutes. I do it every day, right? I'm offering some incense and some flour and some prayers and a lamp and all this to my deity. When I'm doing that in my best state of consciousness, I feel like I'm in the spiritual world, and I'm offering something to Krishna with love. I might even feel like I am a gopi in the spiritual world, or I am, you understand? Or I may just do it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Next one, 1, 2, 3, 4. You understand? And then I've done it, right? I did it. I'm supposed to do it. I vowed that I would do it, and I did it. That's the external mechanical way. But in the deeper way, it's like, I love Krishna. Here, this lamp is my heart, Krishna. I want to serve you like this eternally. I don't want anything else but this. Please always be alive in my heart. Or even more, I could feel I'm with Krishna. I'm with Krishna right now. So that one doesn't do it mechanically. They do this bhuta shuddhi. They do sometimes it involves like some pranayama. I need to calm my mind down and step out of the world that I'm usually in, step into this spiritual world for the next 20 minutes, and then I'll have to step out of it again and step back into my material identity, become a mother, a father, this, that. You understand? Because those are temporary roles. Those are upadhis. They're called false designations. There's one, my wife, when she does her puja every morning, her bhuta shuddhi is simply one verse. She chants one verse. And that is a verse spoken by Sri Chaitanya. And essentially what the verse says is, I'm not a brahmana, I'm not a kshatriya, I'm not a vaishya, I'm not a shudra. All the occupations in the Vedic paradigm, that's not me. I'm not a brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, all the different roles that one plays in terms of the stage of one's life. These are all the Vedic conceptions of the temporary identities or roles that we play. I'm not brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra. I'm not brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa. What am I?
Servant.
Of?
Of the servant.
Yes, of?
Krishna's lotus.
That's right. Of Krishna, who is? Specifically, who is he in this verse?
Lord
Well,
Chaitanya.
the Lord Chaitanya is the one that's speaking the prayer, but he says, Gopi Bhartur Kamala Yor Dasa Dasa Anadasa. I'm the servant of Sri Krishna, the lover of the gopis. That's who I am, right? So for the 20 minutes or so that I'm doing the puja, every day I leave this world behind. I leave my identity behind, my false temporary identity behind. and I live in the spiritual world with Krishna as his follower, as the servant of his servant. You understand? Makes sense? So these are false identities. The Jnani is always, and this includes the Bhakti Yogi, because the Bhakti Yogi includes Jnana. Bhakti includes Jnana. It means I'm distinguishing between my temporary identity and my eternal identity. Krishna tried to appeal to Krishna in the text 10 through 30, trying to say you're an eternal identity beyond your body, and you're thinking like you're not. And Arjuna was still like, okay, let's come down and let's talk about your false identity as a warrior. You know, let's speak to you on that level, your temporary identity as a warrior. I'm going to have to appeal to you on that level. People are going to say things about you, Arjuna, and that's going to hurt. You will not be thinking, I am a powerful warrior anymore. You're going to be like, oh no, everybody thinks of me as a coward. A wise person isn't even, they don't care about that. Whether people are saying nice things or not so nice things. Because they know I'm beyond all that. What they're criticizing is not even me. It's just some image of me. Can we all come to that stage? Right? If we can, we're coming to the level of jnana. And when we're really there, we're coming to the level of wisdom. And Zui had a question or a comment.
Hi, so I had the question that if we get to wisdom, absorption, or even love, is there a chance that we lose clarity and we go back to knowledge or duty?
Yes, there's that chance. They say that in the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna say that when you come back to him, then there's no going back. Like once you've returned to him, then you don't make this mistake again. So there's that. But any point up to that, we could turn it around and go backwards. Yeah, it's always possible. But as long as you got some good association, that'll help you.
This can happen by ignorance or forgetfulness.
It can laziness, ignorance, forgetfulness, offenses to other living beings. These all in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a very famous story of one great king. He was a king, but he was a very advanced yogi, and he was a bhakti yogi. And once his son was old enough to take over the kingdom, he walked away with complete detachment from all the power and the wealth and the fame and reputation. He walked away, just went into the forest. None of that. I am not that king. That's not me. I'm not the king. I am an eternal spirit soul. I'm a servant of Krishna. He walks away from it all. Nobody's going to even know who he is anymore. But easily he walked away from it all. And then one day he was in his little hut, sitting on the bank of a little stream, and he saw a mother deer, pregnant deer. And suddenly a tiger showed up and roared, and the deer jumped over the stream. But when she jumped over, she delivered her little fawn.
Yeah.
And the mother ran off in fear. And so he took that little fawn, little baby deer, and he raised it as his own. And it was always there. And there's nothing cuter. Have you all seen the little baby goats?
Yeah.
A little fawn is maybe still cuter than even a little baby goat. Right? And he became very affectionate towards that baby deer. And he began to lose his focus. That little deer, because it was in that cute little body, he began to develop attachments for this, and the clarity. This is one living entity among so many living entities, and he lost all that. And when he died, he was meditating on the deer. And in his next life, he took birth as a deer. But he had a blessing that he knew the mistake that he made. He still had the consciousness like a human. And so as a deer, he was seeking out the other sadhus, and then he went forward on his path, life after life from that. So it's possible that one can turn back. But if we're careful, we'll keep moving forward. William.
Thank you very much. I'm curious between the interplay between bhakti and jnana.
Yes.
So, to use the analogy, which I really liked about the crystal, and you put a rose in front of it.
Yes.
And so the crystal thinks it's red, but it's actually not. surely a Ganic perspective would be it's the same thing about being a servant of God. That's a
Yes.
perspective that's just coming through. And I wonder how you can kind of defeat that position or even conclude in Bhakti. Because I have a romantic attachment to Bhakti,
Yes.
but I also can totally see how logically you kind of can't win, because unless you die and go and meet Krishna, if that makes sense.
Well, logic is both. We're talking within the realm of Vedanta here, right? You're talking about two different Vedantins, the Advaita Vedantin and the Bhakti Vedantin, and they both have different ideas. And you're saying that what the Bhakti yogis consider to be our true self, the Advaita Vedantins is saying, no, that's just another false identity. I am the lover. I am the servant of the lover of the gopis, Krishna. That's another false. You need to let go of that too, right? So they're both Vedantins with two different interpretations of Vedanta. So how do you come to a conclusion or prove one is right and one or the other is wrong? Logic is not the approach that the Vedantins take. Both sides accept that the standard for proof is not logic. The standard for proof is, do you know?
Experience?
No. Experience is more like the
Oh,
yogi.
excuse me. Wisdom.
Well, what wisdom? No. This is essential when it's.
Is it asking the author that wrote everything?
Well, that's essentially what it is. In other words, it's the proof is both Vedantins. The reason they are Vedantins is because they've accepted that the standard of proof is the Vedic literature itself. Okay? The truth is found in the texts. So now the question is, when we debate on what the texts are saying. Just like in a courtroom, the lawyers aren't arguing on the basis of logic. They may apply logic, but when it comes down to the final decision, it's the judge's responsibility to make sure that the argument is clearly framed in terms of the standard to make the decision by. And in the courtroom, what is that standard?
The law book.
The law books, exactly. So both Vedantins are going to look to Vedanta to see, can you show me verses in Vedanta that establish that we have an eternal identity as an individual person loving the Ishvara, loving the Supreme? Can you show me that? And the way that's done by the Bhakti yogis, and I'm going to speak now really specifically in terms of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the followers of Sri Chaitanya, is they're going to say, yes, we can explain all of this to you very clearly. And what they'll say is, they'll go to the Srimad Bhagavatam and say, here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's all explained. And then the Advaita Vedanta will say, objection, you're sharing something from the Puranas, but we feel that the Shruti, the old text, the four Vedas and the Upanishads, are more authoritative. These are the original ones. And these other texts were written kind of as more popular literature. They have good messages in them. They help people. But the real authority is these earlier texts. And then the Gaudiya Vaishnavas will respond, well, so you have complete faith then in the Shruti, in the Vedas and the Upanishads? Yes. Okay, well, here's a verse in the Upanishads that says that the Itihasa, meaning Mahabharata, and the Puranas are the fifth Veda. And they've also established that Veda means apurusheya, perfect knowledge, beyond, not man-made. So therefore, you have to accept what's in the Puranas. And then we would argue that they would have to say, okay. Then we would say, also look, the author of the Vedas himself is saying, I'm writing a commentary on Vedanta Sutra so that you can understand all this. Here's another verse in Mahabharata that says that the Itihasas and the Puranas are there to clarify the teachings of the earlier texts that you're so. So therefore, our argument is that the best standard of knowledge is the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's the interpretive lens through which you can understand all the texts that you're talking about, which are so confusing, we've been debating about forever. Now, can I find you texts in the Srimad Bhagavatam that are going to establish that we have an eternal identity of a loving servant to Krishna? Yes, I can. I can show you again and again and again. And there's in the Bhagavatam and in the Gita, We have these verses that I wasn't planning on speaking about today, but here we are. Vedic fulfillment texts. Krishna is identified as the very absolute truth spoken of in the Vedas and the Upanishads. There's lots of texts like that in the Bhagavad-gita and so many in the Srimad Bhagavatam where it's like where the supreme absolute truth was spoken about less specifically. Krishna comes back and uses that same language and says, I am that which you were speaking about. I am the Purusha that was spoken about in the Purusha Shukta prayers of the Rig Veda. I am the absolute truth. Janmad Yasya Yataha. This is the opening of the Vedanta Sutra. The absolute truth is that from which everything comes. Srimad Bhagavatam opens up by saying, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I offer my obeisances unto Bhagavan, Krishna. Vasudeva is Krishna's name. And then the very next thing that comes out of his mouth is Janmad Yasya Taha. He is that one who from everything comes. So what these texts, the older texts were saying with less clarity, texts like Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-gita are going to say, that's Krishna. That's Krishna. So let's pull up one text. We'll pull up the 15th chapter just to show how this kind of debate takes place. How in the 9th chapter, Krishna said, Arjuna, I'm going to tell you the most confidential knowledge now. And I'm going to tell it to you because you're not envious. So you'll be able to understand it. And he gives he gives a lot of comparative study in that about the way different people worship the absolute. Some worship the absolute as the universe as the absolute, some the impersonal as the absolute. But he'll say, but some worship me as the absolute, and the advantages of that. He ends that chapter by saying, just always think of me, become my devotee, etc., because I am that absolute. But let's look at the 15th again, where he's going to start to talk about Guyam, the great secret, the confidential teachings. And in this chapter, he essentially says, I'm behind everything. In other books like the Upanishads, I've talked about the gunas. I've talked about transmigration of the soul. I've talked about how the Supreme manifests in the heart of every living being. But in this chapter, he begins to say, that's me. That's me. So let's go down to text 15. I'm seated in everyone's heart. I am seated in everyone's heart. He's not just saying the absolute, me, right? I'm seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, what is to be known? And when we say Vedas here, what does it also include? Upanishads, right? Because the Upanishads, by all the Vedas, what is to be known? What is the subject? Where does it go? I am to be known, right? Anyone can say that the absolute truth is meant to be known through the Vedas. And you can find Vedic statements that say that. He's saying, that's me. I'm that absolute truth. By all the Vedas, I am meant to be known, right? Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Let's jump forward a little bit. Go to text 19. He speaks about, I won't get into all what he spoke about, but it's all very relevant. And then he comes to this text 19. Whoever knows me as the Purushottama, as the supreme person, right? Whoever knows me as the supreme personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. What does that mean? It means he knows Brahman. He knows Paramatma. He knows Bhagavan. He knows the absolute truth in full, all features of it. You see, that's kind of what this chart is meant to show here. Bhagavan is the outer ring. Paramatma is the inner ring. Brahman is the center ring. Knowing Brahman is quite an accomplishment. Knowing that I'm not this body, I'm not these false identities, I'm eternal. Really knowing it, really realizing it. Knowing Paramatma, God is in my heart and God is directing this entire universe. If you know that, you also know Brahman. It's inside the ring of your knowledge. But if you know Krishna, Krishna is the one who manifests as Paramatma. The Brahman is his energy. Then you know everything. Otherwise, if you know just Brahman, you have partial knowledge. If you know Bhagavan, if you know Krishna as the Supreme, you know everything. And then he says this. So he says, whoever knows the Supreme Personality of God, me as the Supreme Personality of God, without doubting, is the knower of everything. He's not going to say that about the Brahman realized person. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. Right? He says, sarva bhavena, with a heart full of love. This is when you know everything, this is the natural response. And then he says, this is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures. Sarva guyam, what is it, shastram? Could you pull up the Sanskrit for that? Iti guya tamam shastram. This is the greatest secret of all the Vedic literature. You may know so much, but not know this. You may know I'm not my body. I'm not these temporary identities. I am Brahman. You may know all of that, but not know this. Maybe because there's some envy there, right? That you're not able to hear the most confidential knowledge, right? So this is where that kind of debate would go, right? Both schools are saying we are the self. We're not that pink rose, but it's such an important question. And so there's so much more I can say about it. But let me share one more thing.
Please.
I'll use this one. The 15th chapter of the Gita is going to use an analogy, and it's going to say that this world is like a reflected banyan tree. It says an upside down banyan tree, and we can understand you see an upside down banyan tree in a reflection, and it's going to say that the material world is this upside down banyan tree, and we're lost in it. We're trying to taste different fruits in it, and we're getting entangled in it. But with the weapon of detachment, which is a very Jnanic idea, one needs to cut down the tree, free themselves from it. Now the Gita is going to say, then you surrender to that Adi Purusha, the original person, from whom it is all extended from time immemorial. Now again, there's another powerful statement that's going to help us understand who is the absolute truth, and that the absolute truth has a personhood. But let's look at it. In other words, and let's look at, now I'm going to speak on the level of logic. The logic is that the material world is full of forms, and there's the element of individuality, and these cause our pain. These cause our suffering, right? Forms, right? There's this element of time working within the material energy. And so we look for happiness through forms, most fundamentally our loved one, our family. They all have these bodies. Those bodies, we look at a form and we become attracted to it, and I can get so much joy and pleasure from that sexually. From that comes children. The forms of the children are very dear to us and give us great satisfaction. But what happens in the course of time, we become separated from those forms. The forms deteriorate, they die, or we get separated from them in some other way. Understand? So we feel pain, right? There's also, so form is a problem. The Jnani is going to say form is a problem. And then the Jnani is also going to say that individuality is a problem. Everybody is an individual, and they got their individual idea and individual wants and individual competition for the limited resources of this material world. So there's a lot of conflict that's due to individual existence. So if our suffering in this world is due to form and individuality, well, then freedom from suffering logically would be a realm or a space or an existence that is
One.
free. Yeah, free of form and free of individuality. Or you could say one where there's just oneness. No form, no individuality. Okay? But the bhakti yogis are saying what you're describing does exist. That experience that you're looking for. But that is just a neutral experience. That's not the full experience. There's something beyond that. And there's such a thing as spiritual form and spiritual individuality, where time doesn't exist, eroding those forms, and where everything is harmoniously working around the divine center, so there's no conflict. That is spiritual individuality and spiritual form. So what you're looking for, and your whole frame of saying to the Advaita Vedanta, your whole frame of reference and looking at things, it has a false premise to it. Here's a question for William. What is the opposite of being $1 million in debt?
Having $1 million.
Yes, right. You answered that the way a Bhakti Yogi would answer it. How would an Advaitin answer it?
Having nothing in your bank.
Having no debt.
Yeah, it's a good example.
Yes. Okay. So they want to become free of individuality and free of form because someone may say, I am suffering constant anxiety because I'm in $1 million in debt. I paid off the debt. Now I'm free of anxiety. But wouldn't it be something more to have $1 million?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So is just freedom from anxiety bliss? Here's another example. When you were a boy and you would go swimming, did you have an older brother?
Yes.
Did your older brother ever take you and stick your head under the water?
I feel like you're now like a stage hypnotherapist or like psychic. Yes, I did. How'd you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the cause of all of your suffering. We've reached the root of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So when your head is being held under the water, mentally, where are you at? Where's your mind at when your head is under the water?
Distress.
Full stress, nothing but stress, 100% anxiety, nothing else, right? It's not like partial anxiety mixed with other thoughts. It's just full on anxiety. When will it end? I need it to end. I need it to end. I need to be free. I need to be free. I need to be free. There's nothing else in the mind but that. It's a very focused, intense form of anxiety. And then when they let your head out of the water, in that moment, and you breathe that breath, you fill your lungs with air, then there's this feeling like complete liberation. The anxiety, that intense anxiety that dominated your entire awareness, it's instantly gone. And you breathe. And when you feel that freedom, it's over. I'm free. I'm free. And that moment almost feels like ecstasy, does it not? It's like, oh, I'm free. Oh, everything that I needed, I just got. I'm free. But we're breathing right now, right? And it's neutral, right? It's a neutral state. But in comparison, in contrast to the intense anxiety, it feels like bliss in that moment. So the Bhakti Yogis are saying that the liberation, the moksha, the freedom from form and the freedom from anxiety born due to erosion of form and individual conflict, that's just a neutral stage. And when you get to texts like the Bhagavatam, it's going to say that the bliss of that, the bliss of Brahman, the bliss of oneness, it's like a drop of bliss. And the bliss of bhakti, of love, is like an ocean. There's no comparison. Okay, so that's a logical approach that that Bhagavatam is going to put forward, or Gita is going to put forward, and so on. Trying to understand, and so they're saying when they hear talk about love, talk about an identity, an individual identity in the spiritual realm, to them they immediately, that registers as illusion, maya. Yes. Material, because it involves individuality, involves form, and that's material. No. There's such a thing as spiritual. And Krishna's going to say this in the Gita. He's going to talk about his form, which is transcendental. It's made of his spiritual inner energy. So all these things are said, but the question is, do we look at them, or do we keep looking back at what we're more comfortable looking at? You know. I'll just keep throwing a few more things on.
My mind's blown. Like, okay. Please keep going.
This is kind of a joke that's been applied in terms of science, but quite frankly, science and impersonalism, they fit very nicely together, in my mind. In other words, I feel that they both can become. One's not seeing what's there because of their inner hang-ups, to put it bluntly. But you're driving home one night. It's dark out, and you park your car and arrive in your home, and you see out on the street is your neighbor, and they're down on the ground underneath the lamppost, and they're searching for something on the ground. So you go over and see if you can help. Hey, you lost something? Yes, I lost my keys to my house. Oh, you lost them right in this area? No, I lost them over there. Well, why are you looking over here? Because the light is better. All right. So in other words, if you think that the absolute truth must land within the realm of lacking form and individuality, then you're never. Or if you think form and individuality is limited to this space of material, and you're not willing to think that it's outside, it could be outside this space, then you're never going to find it, and you're going to keep looking to verses that speak that can be interpreted in a more limited scope, in the scope of Brahman. And all the verses that speak about this wider scope, that there's a Para Brahman, right? That's the verse. Arjuna is going to turn to Krishna and say, Para Brahman, Param Dham, you are the supreme Brahman. Krishna is going to say, Brahmano hi pratishtaham, that the impersonal Brahman is I support it, right? Everything comes from me. So if you're determined, or let's say, put it this way, if you're uncomfortable with the idea of a person behind everything, then when you look to Vedanta, you're going to look for the verses that fall within this scope. And anything that falls in this scope, you're going to explain away. The Bhakti Vedanta is saying that the verses that speak like this, they're valid. They're describing one limited aspect of the absolute truth. And then there's more verses that describe the more expansive manifestations of the absolute truth. They're going to say that these ones that fall outside this ring, that they need to be radically interpreted as if they're being entirely, what's the word I'm looking for? Figurative. So when Krishna says, always think of me, become my devotee, then you interpret saying that doesn't mean Krishna. That means the inner self. You just have to start throwing stuff out the window like crazy, So that's how this debate goes on. Okay, so the Advaitins is going to say, let's not look at Bhagavatam. Let's look at the Upanishads. They're going to have a much easier time presenting their arguments there. But even on the basis of that, our acharyas will argue. But especially what the Gaudiya Vedantins do, and this is the nature of their argument. They're saying the first thing we establish is that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the fulfillment and the conclusion and the what gives clarity to all the earlier texts. It's the author's commentary on Vedanta itself. Once you establish that, then the whole argument shifts over to here. You bring then now we're looking at this text for the answers. And there it's going to become abundantly clear. The bhakti message becomes abundantly clear. Okay? Is that helpful?
So helpful. May I have a quick...
Please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to share that, because I think where we're at now, what we're touching at now is, the conclusion of where we're pointing at now is, the difference between me living my life now or shaving my hair off and becoming a monk, fundamentally, because it's the essence. Because what I'm hearing you say is fundamentally the way that these different schools, they look to justify their positions is by looking at the text. They have this.
Yes. It's called pramana,
yes.
the standard of proof.
Perfect.
Pramana.
And so they're saying that this is the law book, essentially. Let's have a look at it.
Yes.
Then everyone's coming from different lenses.
Yes.
And, we've got the two fundamental lenses, should we say, the impersonalist or personalist, the dualism, non-dualism.
Yes.
I think it's the same thing. And I'm loving everything you're saying, and you're obviously presenting a Bhakti argument here, which I really resonate with. It's also the one I've given the most airtime to, and I really like it. And you know, one of the things I'm picking up on what you're saying is that the impersonalist, the non-dualist, as it were, when he's looking at Krishna, saying, "This is the most confidential knowledge. Me, Krishna, I am the source."
Yes.
You can't run from that. Like, how explicit can I make it? And then they're going, "Yeah, but it was a metaphor." In which case, how can you can't win if somebody decides to turn something into a metaphor, right?
And that's why the argument is never settled.
Well, there we are.
Yeah.
And then what I'm hearing you say is, well, actually, the essence of why they left the spiritual realm in the first place is because they wanted to know what it's like to be the enjoyer. That, should we say, corrupted part, or just that illusion within there that is covering their true self, is the reason why they can't see what's right in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
I like that.
If you don't want to see it, you don't see it.
Yes.
Your desires become a filter of truth, right? They cloud. Desire is a truth blocker,
Yes.
right? We see that commonly in our own lives, but it plays out in this realm as well.
Thank you.
There's so much that can be said on this, but there's one more thing I just want to share.
Okay.
What the Bhagavatam is going to do to help us understand this really clearly is it's going to give several very important examples of people, not just transcendentalists, but the most stalwart transcendentalists who evolved from their full engagement with Brahman to engagement with Bhagavan. In other words, they were fully realized on the impersonal level. And then they grew from that level through the right exposure to connecting with God as a person. And the two big examples, there's three really in Bhagavatam, but the two real standout ones. One is the four Kumars. Okay? The four Kumars are practically like, after Vishnu, who's the original being in the universe, then there's Brahma, who's born from Vishnu's navel. And the first beings that he procreates with his own mind is these four Kumars, these four little boys. But these boys are the greatest sages. They're practically the original beings in the universe. Their knowledge and the depth of their Brahman realization is everybody, all sages accept and honor. They're incredibly deep in their Brahman realization. But in Bhagavatam, there are these ancient sages, because they've been around since the beginning, but they remained in little child bodies. And they approach the gates of Vaikuntha, and they're barred from entering Vaikuntha by the guards. And Lord Vishnu comes to them to clear up their being prevented from entering the spiritual realm. And this is one of my, Google Four Kumars painting, BBT. This is one of my favorite paintings. When they see, they're already Brahman realized they've got peace, they've got detachment. There's nothing of the material realm to attract them, to distract them, to bewilder them. They're beyond all that. But something happens when they see the form of Vishnu. No, the next one, that one right there. This, yes, thank you. Blow that one up. It's got to scroll down a bit. This painting right here. Just blow it up as much as you can. Thank you. So they see Lord Vishnu. They've known the supreme absolute truth as non-personal energy. They've connected with it, they've experienced it, felt the relief, felt the what you could call bliss. There's nothing of the material realm that is attracting them, bewildering them. There's no sense of false identity. They're Brahman realized. But when they see the Para-Brahman, when they see the personal, no form of the material world would have captured their attention like this. But this form, which is composed of spiritual energy, they perceived it as fully spiritual, but more beautiful. Not empty, but spiritual energy full with beauty. And so it said when they smelled, you see he's got his feet there and the tulsi is on, when they smelled the aroma of the tulsi from the feet of Lord Vishnu, something inside them changed. And then they, these stalwart impersonalists, begin to glorify the form of Brahman and the love of Brahman, or the devotional service to Brahman. So we see the fully realized Brahman evolve towards Bhagavan. Now the same thing is asked, the same kind of thing plays out with the great sage Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami is the speaker of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's the son of who? Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Vedanta himself, right? The sage that provided Vedanta. This is his son. He's considered more advanced than his father, more otherworldly, more full-on, just detached from everything of the world. And that plays out in Bhagavatam. We see that one thing that's shared to illustrate that is that he leaves home without any interest in any of the Vedic rites. He's naked, teen, transcendentalist, and just walking away from home. And his father's Vyasadeva is going after him, saying, no, we should do the Vedic rituals. Right? I should train you, etc. But he's heard Bhagavatam and he's gone. And he has no, now as he's walking away, his father's coming after them. And as he's walking away, he passes a pond. And in that pond, there are young girls. And they're bathing in the pond naked. And Sukadeva Goswami walks past them. They're teens, he's a teenager. And they just look at him as he goes by. And then Vyasa is coming behind him. And as Vyasadeva comes, Vyasadeva respected, universally. It's not just that he has Gyan, he's provided all the Gyan, right? But when Vyasadeva comes, they cover themselves up quickly. And then, so he's going after his son, and then he sees, he's like, hold it. When my son came by, you just stood there, naked, in front of him. And when I came by, you covered yourself up. Why? And they said, well, it was obvious. You can just look at him. He's not of this world. When he looks at us, he doesn't see women, girls, body. He just sees the soul. There's none of that in him. And in other ways, in other Puranas, the glories of Shukadeva Goswami, he's just glorified as topmost otherworldly. When he appears at the end of the first canto, the king Parikshit he's cursed to die in 7 days. He gathers with all the top, I call them the A-list sages, right? All the universe's top sages are there. And he wants to ask them, what is the duty of a person that's about to die? And he's ready to spend his last 7 days with these sages and do whatever they say. Who's he going to hear from amongst those sages? And just at that time, Shukadeva Goswami appears. Again, he's 16 years old. He's younger than everyone. He's naked. His hair is kind of scattered in his face, and he just looks like he's just crazy. And he's being followed by like women and children who are just kind of captivated by his aura. And as soon as he arrives, all the other sages, including Vyasadeva himself, you're the one to speak. So they place him on an elevated platform, and he speaks. And Vyasadeva, in introducing him into the picture, he brings up a question that he's asked, that Sutta Goswami has asked, his disciples. Sukadeva Goswami is sitting in Naimisharanya talking about, I've heard this Bhagavatam from my guru Shukadeva Goswami. I was sat there when he was talking to King Parikshit. And they say to him, no, now why was Shukadeva Goswami interested in hearing the Leelas of Radha and Krishna and the Gopis in Vrindavan? Because wasn't he beyond romance? Wasn't he beyond these kind of stories? Aren't stories about boys and girls and love and romance, isn't that of the material realm? Doesn't coming to the spiritual platform mean letting go of all of that, seeing the hollowness in all of that, realizing that that's not where happiness lies, and so on? No, no, no. This is the proof that even the Atmaramas, even those whose full happiness comes from within, the Atmaramas take great pleasure in hearing Krishna's Leela because it's not of this world. It's in the spiritual realm. Even though there's form, even though there's individuality and love, romance, human connections, crying, all the stuff that they identify as illusion is happening here in reality. And here's an interesting thing, you know, like we talk about this world as being illusory. We talk about this world as being sometimes reflection is what's used in Vedanta, right? Nowadays, we have other examples that we could use, like we say virtual reality, right? But let's work with reflection. Same thing. Reflections are very interesting. The impersonalists say that both Vedantins accept that this world is illusory. But what does that mean? What is the famous, does anyone know the famous statement that's quoted by Shankar and quoted throughout? It's the main statement of the Advaita Vedantins. Brahma Satyam. Anyone know this? Jagat Mitya. Brahma Satyam. The Brahman is true, is real. Jagan, this universe, Mitya is false, is illusion. Okay? That's their motto. But what does it mean that this world is illusion? If individuality is illusion, if form is illusion, they're saying that this realm that we're in is not here. And me being me and you being you is entirely untrue. There's no substance to it. But we're sitting here experiencing it right now. Then they'll say, actually, words can't describe it. Right? They can't really explain what's going on in this world. They'll literally say it's beyond words. That's all you can say about it. Whereas the Bhakti Vedantas will say, no, the answer is right there in Bhagavad-gita. It's like a reflection. And 15th chapter it opens up with this, 15th chapter. It opens up with this reflected tree upside down, right? Now, so it's saying that we should understand that this world is illusory like a reflection is an illusion. That's going to help us a lot. Let's work with that. Let's say that you are standing on a sidewalk in a city and you're looking at a window of a shop, okay? Not even exactly through the window, but at the window. So you're looking at an image reflected on that window, okay? So you see yourself, do you not? Or do you? Do you see yourself? You see a reflection of yourself. So you're not really seeing yourself, but you're kind of seeing yourself. You see an image of yourself. Is the image real or unreal? It's real because the glass is real. The light that's on the surface of the glass, it exists. But if you think that that's you, well, then you're an illusion.
Yeah.
So it's illusory in that sense. What if I see behind me, there's a apple tree? I'm not looking behind me. I'm looking at the window, seeing an image of myself. I'm seeing an image of an apple tree. First question: what do I know?
You know that there is an apple tree in the reflection in the window.
What else? What else do I know?
You know that there is a thing called an apple tree.
Thank you. Yeah, and you know it's right behind you.
Yes.
Right. So in other words, the reflection cannot exist without an original substance that's being reflected.
It's like Plato's cave.
Yes, Plato's cave plays out in all of this, right? There has to be something that's being reflected. If I see an apple reflected in the window, if I go and try to touch that apple, taste it, I'll never be able to taste it because it's a reflection of it. It's unreal in that sense. But it's real in the sense that there is glass and there is an image of it. But I also know there's a real tree available that does not have the limitations of of the glass reflected, that could actually be tasted, that could be touched and tasted for real. So when we see a reflection, it indicates that there's something real that's being reflected. We also know that it looks just like what's being reflected, right? It appears exactly like what's being reflected, except, well, that's one thing, but
Well, it's a
speaking
reflection. It's a reflection.
It's a reflection, but the reflection looks exactly like it's reflected, but it's reversed.
Yes.
So it's exactly like what's being reflected, but the total opposite, right? And so if this world is a reflection, as the Bhagavad-gita is saying, then we know that there has to be another world. We know that that world has to look like this world, but it has to be the total opposite of this world. So what is this world? Everything erodes, everything falls apart. There's always conflict. What is that world? It has to have individuality, right? Because in this world there's individuality and it's a reflection. It has to have form because we see form in this world and it's a reflection. But it's those things in an opposite way.
Yes.
That it's without the limitations.
Thank you.
Just like the real apple doesn't have the limitations of the reflected apple, the spiritual world doesn't have the limitations of the material world, which is just a reflection. It doesn't erode. Time is conspicuous by its absence. There's no destructive force, and there's perfect harmony, whereas there's constant conflict in this realm. So this is how the Bhaktivedanta presentation, it can answer questions consistently, coherently.
Yes.
Where I honestly feel the Advaita Vedanta presentation cannot do it.
Can I ask you one last question?
Yes.
Maybe you don't have to ask it.
Okay.
But because in my summary, I didn't get to ask it, and I think it's a really important one. So I'll be really, really succinct. My understanding is there's all this knowledge. People interpret the knowledge differently. You've explained some of the Bhakti interpretation. I can't read it all. When I listened to you and Edward Bryant, who I loved on your show, who's read a lot, I was just like, yes. If these guys are Bhakti, I'm in. And at the same time, for my own conviction, I know I can't read it all.
Yeah.
So do you have a useful framework that I can, without reading everything, come to my own realization, conclusion of which is right?
Well, you see, the way that we approach this in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is the one philosopher that really deals with this most thoroughly is Jiva Goswami. And he wrote a group of books called the Satsandarbhas. Okay, he's covering all he's responding to Vedanta and showing how Sri Chaitanya's presentation of Vedanta is the unique and most complete understanding of Vedanta. Now, what Srila Prabhupada does is and the Chaitanya Charitamrita does an incredible job of summarizing that, summarizing all the teachings of the Goswamis. It's our Goswamis, these 6 Goswamis. For a mind like yours, you will find them I believe you'll find them very satisfying. These, in terms of their character and in terms of what they shared. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita is a book that takes the essential teachings of the 6 Goswamis and presents them as a biography of Sri Chaitanya. It's an incredibly conceived and executed work of philosophy. What Srila Prabhupada does is he follows in those footsteps and he shares those conclusions as they're articulated by the Goswamis. He builds them into his commentaries. So by reading Prabhupada's commentaries, you get the essential teachings. But your mind is a little bit more like, I want to compare them side by side. And I would say the Chaitanya Charitamrita is a place where that plays out really well. Particularly, there's conversations that Sri Chaitanya has with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Prakashananda Saraswati. And then his conversations with Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. Just in those, and those are all kind of covered in the book called The Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It takes out 6 conversations, I think 5 or 6 conversations in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Prabhupada just kind of lays them out. He just kind of summarizes them in that book. But these are places that I think you'll find a lot of interest. Thank you very much, William. Kishore Gopi.
Haribol, Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Haribol.
Kaustubha, for Will. In the analogy you were giving with the apple tree behind you, the reflection, the
Yes.
mirror, the glass, would it be appropriate to add to that in order to have a reflection, there has to be a source of light, and then that light could be Krishna, God?
It's interesting that you say that, but you see, we say that their goal is this. What they say is the pinnacle, which is the impersonal Brahman. We say it's just a neutral stage. But do you know what we say it actually consists of? It exists of the effulgence of Krishna. It exists from the effulgence of the body of Krishna. The Krishna is the source of all light. The sun gets its light from Krishna, right? That he says in the 15th chapter, right? We could go right back in the 15th chapter. Right? I'm the light of the sun and the moon, right? Yes, there has to be a source of light, and the source of light for the reflection of the material reflection is Krishna himself. Yeah. Yes. Don't say it. That's Ginger. Thank you. Thank you for the clue.
What you were saying about the reflective, like opposite of our world, essentially.
Yes.
It reminded me of this TED talk that a woman gave when she had a stroke. And the
Okay.
left side of her brain, the language processing, the comparing, sorting, pattern making part of her brain was offline. She was a neuroscientist.
Okay.
So she got to experience the world.
What an arrangement, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
by Krishna.
Krishna put you exactly,
That-
okay?
Yeah,
And so
you're going to
what
get
she
to experience it, not
experienced
just
was
speculate about it.
pure love, pure peace. There was nothing she saw as black and white anymore. She saw everything as a spectrum. Time was different and things like that. And so sometimes I think our brain is this like, that's the cause of our Maya. Part of our brain is the cause of this Maya. And
Oh,
and so what I was thinking is that you don't see energy, you feel energy, right? Like it's not something you see, it's something you feel. And that's what she was experiencing. And I think that's how we can like experience this God consciousness. It's not something like the books and the language and the stories. That's how Krishna has put this into the world for us to try and understand it. You know, it's like how we are going to consume it. And so I just feel so high right now on Krishna. I don't
Oh
know.
man, you're really getting there. You're breaking barriers of understanding. It's very, very nice to hear. Now we have 45 minutes to talk about Bhagavad-gita. Did we have a question? Paul, did you have a question? No. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, but all this is good. All of this is essential when you read the Gita. See, Prabhupada is taking us to these sometimes he's fast forwarding us to these understandings, and people criticize his translations because he wants us to understand the full meaning of the verse, maybe more than the verse is saying literally. So he'll translate a term like karma yoga into bhakti yoga because he knows that's the fulfillment that Krishna is working to. But this is a foundation for understanding everything that we're reading. And particularly, we've been discussing this here, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman means, I understand I'm not these false identities, I'm not this body, I'm eternal, I'm beyond everything of this world. If I really understand it, I feel an incredible peace, detachment. Paramatma means I understand still more. All of that I get. But I also understand that there's an intelligence separate from me, beyond me, that I'm dependent on, and that is moving this cosmos in relation to all of us, regulating the experience of every living being. That's Paramatma. If I understand Paramatma, if I'm Paramatma realized, I realize, you know, when we say this world isn't happening to me, it's happening for me, that's Paramatma realization, when you really fully understand that, right? And you understand that this universe is a body, that it has a soul, which is Lord Vishnu, and that same Lord Vishnu enters into my own heart, in the heart of every living being, and within every atom. Now you're understanding that that supreme absolute truth is inside everything, and everything is within that absolute truth. These things that sounded like riddles and Zen kind of koans and things, now you understand practically how that plays out, right? That's Paramatma realization. There's God, we're all dependent on him. Everything is happening by his regulation. He's with us at every moment, witnessing everything. a broader level of understanding of the absolute truth, wider. And then if you understand Bhagavan, you understand that it all comes from this boy, this beautiful boy Krishna. That there's a person ultimately, and there's an intimate, loving person that you can know and love with your own heart's flavor, like that. You can even love him like a lover. You can love him like a parent loves a child. You can love him like the closest friend, and he will reciprocate with that love in his own unique way. But that's not just a sentimental thing, but all the rest exists within that realization. Then you've understood, as was said in the 15th chapter, that person is the knower of everything. Whereas the Brahman realized person is the knower of part of the absolute truth, but not the whole. We were speaking about the Ramakrishna Mission's presentation the other day with some of you that stayed behind. Mm-hmm. And they're going to say that it's like the there's the story of the elephant. 5 different men are blindfolded, blind men, and they're touching the different parts of the elephant. One is saying the elephant is like a big tree, he's touching the leg. And the other one has the tail, and no, it's not, it's like a snake. Mm-hmm. And the other one's saying, no, it's like a wall. And someone's saying that got the trunk, it's like a hose, They're all right? We accept that principle that different people are perceiving the absolute truth in reporting factual information through their realization. But there's also the full picture. It's an elephant that has all these features, and none of these features, unless you know all these features, you don't know the whole thing. And so there's the impersonal feature of the elephant of Krishna, and then there's the localized feature, the Paramatma. But only if you take your blindfold off and see the entire elephant, you see Krishna. And so that's where we say there's you have to take it further. If you only know the leg of the elephant, you know the elephant, you know at least about that part of the elephant. You may fully realize what the leg is like, but you don't know the whole elephant. And you can't say that's the same as knowing the whole elephant. It's not, right? So if you know Brahman, it's real. And the peace that you get is real. We respect that. But if you know the whole elephant, you know something more. And if you turn around and say the whole elephant is Maya, only the leg is real, then we say no. And they're saying only Brahman is real. Brahman, Satyam, Jagan, Mithya, and everything else is false. And they don't believe in a spiritual realm that's being reflected. They say that the pinnacle is to know just the oneness. And we say that's just one feature. I believe it's a more coherent, but also it's a more mature, synthesized understanding. That their understanding is, it's all about non-duality, but really it's just a dualistic swing to the other side. So their understanding is practically dependent on the Maya, because it's all negative. What is God? He's not this, he's not that, he's not this, he's not that. They call it neti neti. How do you understand God? He's not this, he's not this, he's not this. Okay, but what is he? And that they can't say. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. We had other questions. Eliana.
Yeah.
Where are you from, Eliana?
From the Netherlands.
Netherlands, okay.
Is it always that we move through the stages?
Such a heavy thing to say. I'm from the Netherlands.
Yeah. Do we always move from Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan realization? Or is it like also bits of this, bits of that? Like,
it's such an important question, and I should have mentioned something about this. I gave the example, Bhagavatam gave 2 examples, right? 4 Kumaras and Sukadeva Goswami. These are top level monists, right? Like when it comes to non-dualism, they were realizing it on a level like is unquestionably authentic and recognized. And they evolved towards Bhagavan, towards understanding the personal and feeling a deeper satisfaction in that. Do we see people that within Shastra, do we see top level worshippers of the form of Krishna? Do we see one of the gopis, one of Krishna's friends, say, oh, I'm become attracted to the non-personal feature of Krishna? Never. So people that are not fully realized, we may go on, we may bounce back and forth. Someone may believe in Krishna and then later say, you know what, I believe more in the impersonal. We don't see too much of that. But that you might see. But when you get to these very high, we don't see the stalwart impersonalists go to bhakti and then come back. Or we don't see the stalwart devotees become attracted to the impersonal Brahman. There's no, show me an example. Go to the sacred texts and find me that example. I don't believe it exists. That's why the Bhagavatam takes pains to show the exalted nature of the four Kumaras and Sukadeva Goswami to say, these are people on the highest level of Brahman realization. And they said there's something more.
So it's more of an example for us instead of that we need to be.
Let's get the microphone. Yeah. Thank you.
It's more of like an example for us that even those who are very high up already like realized that there's even something more, whereas it's not that we first need to get to that level before we can like.
Oh, you
get to
asked
the
another.
personal level.
You are bringing up good stuff. It means we're not going to get to the Bhagavad-gita today, but it's all Bhagavad-gita. It will. It absolutely will. Just remind me again what you just said. Oh,
So-
about going up to different levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to the slide that has the big target on it. Now we're going to look at this lens, evolution and God realization, more carefully. So we talked about this. Now we're going to talk about this, and then there will only be one lens that we haven't talked about. So, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. This is when I presented this for this Harvard class. There was one of our students here last year did this project for Harvard University where he brought on, for a whole month practically, he brought on different speakers. And I gave a presentation on Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And I presented this, that Brahman realization fits within the broader circle of Paramatma and Bhagavan realization. Again, what I'm trying to illustrate here is that if you have Bhagavan realization, you necessarily have Brahman realization. And Paramatma, that's how. When I presented that, one of the questions said, I thought it was the other way around. That Brahman is bigger than Paramatma. That Brahman is bigger than Bhagavan. That Bhagavan is small, right? And then part of Brahman, but Brahman is beyond. But if you look at these texts, you're going to see, no, it's like this. And go to the next slide, please. So Paramatma, Brahman realization, I realize this is, now I'm going to talk about it in terms of what you experience when you know Brahman. What you've experienced when you've realized Brahman. I'll share all these slides with you if you like. I think we already have, but we can do it again. I realize myself as beyond all temporary identities. I am the pure crystal. I'm not the rose that's being reflected. I'm eternal blissful consciousness. I'm not this body, right? This body is just a vehicle that I'm passing through, right? But who am I? Atato Brahma, or I am Aham Brahmasmi. I am consciousness. I'm a spark of consciousness. I'm free from lamentation and desire. I don't need anything of this world. It's not like I'm up one day and down the next, and emotional, going through these emotional waves on the material level, right? On the spiritual level, I might be, but on the material level, it's not like the shiftings of the material world have me moving through waves going up and down, right? There's no lamentation, there's no desire. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, Nasochati, Nakankshati, right? Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, I've become peaceful, right? When I've achieved this stage of realization. And I am one with the underlying spiritual reality. I am connected to everything, to the origin of everything, right? I have no separate, I do, but I don't. In one sense, I'm connected to the one, and I feel it. This is a very powerful state of awareness. I don't want to downplay that. And what I want to say is, I may know this theoretically. I may know that there's a person behind it all and still not have realized this. I may have this knowledge, but it hasn't matured into realized knowledge. You understand? I want to share something with you, and this goes right to Eliana's question. I think this is so important. It's so important in our own lives, and it's so important in our presenting bhakti to others. You ready? Yeah. I think this is important. Okay. We may have knowledge of Bhagavan and preach it, but not yet be Brahman realized. You understand? Yeah. I'm talking about two things here when I'm sharing these. This is realization, right? I may know, theoretically know, academically know, that beyond Brahman there's Bhagavan. There's God as a person. And you can know that God, and you can love that God. I may know all of that in theory, never experienced it, right? I haven't spoken to that God, and he hasn't shaken my hand and embraced me. I have no experience of that, no realization of that. But I know it, right? It's just academic knowledge, and I have faith in it. I may have that knowledge, but not have this realization. I may know that I'm all these things. I'm eternal and blissful. I'm free. But am I really free from lamentation? I may know that my true nature is beyond lamentation and desire, but I may not have achieved that state of awareness. I may know that the bodies are insignificant and the soul within is the real truth. But I may still respond to the bodies, be moved by them, respond to one in one way and another in another way, because of my own inner programming is still in place. I haven't transcended it yet. You understand? So now I know this, I haven't realized it. I know this, and I haven't realized it. And because I haven't realized this, people pick up on that. That person is judging me. Look at the conflict that they're creating. Look at all the tension that they're creating. They feel they're superior to everyone else. You understand? This is why people don't like religion. Right? In other words, if I know all this but I haven't realized it, I've got religion. But as soon as I start to realize this, I'm starting to enter into the spiritual. Right? When the things of this world don't rock you, attract you, or repulse you because you're beyond them, because you've realized your own inner spiritual nature, now for real, right? Whether it's hot or cold. Let's say someone insults a religious person. They become upset. Oh, you look at you, you're evil and you're terrible and you don't know anything. But if you insult a person that's spiritual, that actually has realized this, it doesn't matter to them. Okay, you're insulting some false presentation of me based on my body or whatever. It's not me. You're not affecting me. You know, like when they said this, was it Socrates? He said they can't kill me because they'll have to catch me first. But he was sitting in a prison. He's saying they caught my body, but they haven't caught me. Even if they put me in a prison, even if they kill me or kill my body, they're only killing my body. They can't kill me. This is Brahman realization. people don't like religion because people are preaching it, but they haven't come to the level of Brahman realization. And I think, could you go back to the chart of the 6 blue dots on the top? Getting from here to here is becoming Brahman realized. You see? Going from obligated but not yet informed, then going from informed but not yet transformed. Then getting to here, transformed through integrated knowledge, clear and at peace. That's Brahman realization. Yes, please remind me of your name.
Angelina.
Angelina. Microphone coming your way, Angelina. Here it is.
I think a simple way that my brain is processing this is to say knowledge to wisdom. Another way to think of it is theory to practice.
Yes, that's another way to say it.
Just
Oh,
a-
no, not practice. Well,
In action, right?
theory to like embodiment, or theory to, yeah.
You're really
like that.
doing the thing as opposed to
Yes.
just knowing it somewhere in your mind.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Very good. Very good. Yes. We're going to go to Kat, and then we're going to take the microphone to the back of the room.
A few people have heard me ask this question 1,000 times, but I'm going to ask it again.
Okay.
Can you help me get to Bhagavan knowledge, or even just knowledge, not even realization? Because I think I understand theoretically Brahman and Paramatma,
Yes.
and I feel like I experience those things in my soul.
Okay.
But Bhagavan, even though I can read about it,
This is a great question.
Yes.
What I want to do is I want to hold this question for our last 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay? Because I think the other questions are right on what we're talking about. This is related to what we're talking about. But I have a feeling that the other burning questions in the back of the room. So, but you have to remind me. When we got 10 minutes left, we're going back to Kat's question. Everybody with me on that? Yeah. Okay, Arjuna.
Can we go back to the other slide? Okay, so theoretical knowledge is simply that, right?
Yes.
So my question for you is like, I know this and I believe this, but yet my father's going to leave his body soon, and I know I'm going to be lamentating about it.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about, right? Like I'm there theoretically,
Yes.
but I'm not really there.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And Ginger.
I just want to say this kind of reminds me of the moments when I would take psychedelics and I would feel that God energy, but I hadn't done the work to get to the place where I could stay there.
This
you
will
know?
last longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I'm completely sober right now and I feel the same
That's
way.
what I
as
always
the-
say, that what happens when you take psychedelics is you get a different perspective. But this knowledge gives us a different perspective, and it doesn't go away. Very interesting. Paul.
I just have a quick question. Have you met many souls that are at this stage of Bhagavan? And how would we know?
Bhagavan realization.
Yes, if we're not there.
In one sense, the question is,
Like, have you seen like this
well,
person?
let me say one thing, that it's not, these aren't switch flips, that it's something growing in us. And so, in a sense, what the bhakti yogis do is they go right here and they practice, they focus all on this, and they grow through Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan realization by focusing on Bhagavan. Do I know people? I believe I do. I believe I do. I can't prove it to you. One example I always like to use is Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Have you heard about him? I knew him when I was a new monk. He was like, like when Raghunath and I became brahmacharis, we were 21 years old. And then there were these men that to us seemed like elders, but they were like about 40 years old or 35 years old, but they seemed to us like full-on adults. Now, as a 60-year-old, I look at them and I don't understand. Anyway. But he was a person that was like, he was our exemplar for us. He was African-American, sannyasi. I could give you his whole history. I won't go into too much, but let me say this. In his last day, he got cancer, and they amputated his foot, and then they amputated his leg. It was so aggressive. And after they amputated his leg, they found the cancer spread throughout his whole body. It was, what do they call it, terminal? Or so it's just a question: do you want to do all kind of treatments just to extend your life, or otherwise you just accept it? He said, at this point, I'll accept it. And he said, I've tried to teach my disciples how to live as a devotee of Krishna. Now I'll try to show them how to die as a devotee of Krishna. And he went to this farm in Pennsylvania, the Gitanagari farm, which is a farm he was involved in. And it was like a temple and a farm community. I'm going to stay here until I die. And what is he going to do? Just practice bhakti, hearing and chanting. And in the final days, towards the final days, Radha Swami, who was his close friend, visited him. And he said, can I ask a favor of you? To Radha Swami. And Radha Swami said, of course, anything that you want. He said, can you stay with me here until I die? I want to die in your arms. And he said, of course. And at that point, they thought he had maybe 3 days left to live, but he lived another 8 weeks. And so they spent those 8 weeks together, hearing and chanting. And I believe it was on like the second to last day. I'm not sure about that, but it was very near the end. They were chanting japa together. And as they're chanting, Bhaktitirtha Swami turned to Radha Swami. And Radha Swami said that he'd never seen a face like this in his life. That it had a smile like that just was not, like literally not of this world. Mm-hmm. It wasn't material energy behind that. There was something else. It was unusually bright. And he said he wasn't just crying, but that the water was like pouring out of his eyes. Like, not like an ordinary human crying experience. So he turns to him, he's got this face like he'd never seen a face like this. And he said to him, now imagine, your leg has been amputated, your body is emaciated, you're days or less from dying, your body is racked with extreme pain because he wasn't taking all these treatments that people normally take. And he turned to Radha Swami and he said, Radha Swami, and he's crying and all that. Life just doesn't get any better than this. Right? Life just doesn't get any better than this. Most people would be saying, why me? Life just doesn't get any worse than this. But what? It was that name. It was hearing those pastimes. It was a feeling of Krishna alive in his own heart. This is how I understand it. So I would say Bhagavan realization. He realized this person. Okay. Kat's question. Remind me of the question. Explain Bhagavan. How do we understand Bhagavan? Your understanding, Brahman and Paramama make enough sense, but Bhagavan, it just seems like a big jump to get to that one. It almost seems like it's going down or something like that. Is it kind of like that?
And like practical ways we can try to connect with Bhagavan
That's
that
easy.
Don't like
involve Bhagavan.
Yeah. like reading. Yeah.
Okay, no, this is great. I'm very happy you asked this question. What I want to do, instead of climbing up from Brahman to Paramama to Bhagavan, I want to turn around and go the other direction. I want to start with Bhagavan. Okay? You ready? So what we say these texts are saying, if you look at the entirety of the text, you get this cosmological picture. That there's a realm beyond the realm that we're in right now called Vaikuntha. And within that realm of Vaikuntha, there are innumerable spiritual planets, and the whole place is self-illuminated. And within all of those planets, there's always some manifestation of the Supreme in his multifarious manifestations. And those realms are populated by beings that are full of bhakti, full of love for that particular manifestation. But amongst all those planets, there's one planet that's larger than all the rest, I think even put together. I may be misquoting that, but in other words, there's a most significant planet, and that planet is called Goloka Vrindavan. And that's where you find the complete manifestation of the absolute truth, 100%. And how that is understood will be explained in these texts. But a simple way would be to say that in that form, the Supreme can reciprocate with any type of love that you have. If you go to one of the Vaikuntha planets and Krishna is manifested there as Narayana, as a four-armed form of Vishnu, you can love him. And that love is it's that experience. We can't even imagine the depth of the bliss that you feel when you feel that love for Lord Vishnu and he's reciprocating with that love for you. It's just there's nothing of this world that can compare to it. And the bliss of Brahman becomes seen from this perspective. From our perspective, it seems like bliss. From this perspective, it seems like empty. But Vishnu's not there. The object of my love is gone. It seems like hell. Right? Once you're tasting that relationship and the depth of that love, it's incredibly fulfilling and satisfying. But if your love for God is intimate, like a friend, let's say, you can't love that Vishnu like a friend. He's always going to be greater, more powerful. But in the Goloka Vrindavan, you can love him like you forget that. He doesn't have four arms there. He just looks like a beautiful boy. You can love him like a friend and forget that he's a friend. Forget that he's God, right? And that forgetfulness facilitates the intimacy. You can love him like a parent loves a child. You can love him like a lover loves a lover. And even within these, there's many categories because there's different types of lovers. There's different types of friends. And you can love him even like there's another kind of love like in English it does, if I say it like this, but the way that an inferior loves a superior. Like maybe, did you ever have a teacher that you really loved, right? And the basis of that relationship is this person knows more, and it's kind of respect is going one way, and affection is going the other way primarily. So there's this. So that kind of love is also any kind of love can be reciprocated by this form. So that's approaching it on a esoteric, aesthetic level, the nature of how love can be shared. This form is supreme because of the ways that it can reciprocate with love and do it in ways that are more intimate and not only in more variety, but in more depth. That's Krishna. But we could also look at it ontologically, meaning categories of existence. Which one is the source and which one emanates from the source? And so the idea is that form of Krishna, if you want to love him with awe and reverence, he'll manifest as Vishnu and give you a place where you can love him and he'll reciprocate with your love. And what if you don't want? If you want to be independent? What if somehow within you look at his position as the center of everything, ontologically the center, and ontologically, eternally, you revolve around that center? One might feel, what is it like to be the center? Well, if you want that, he'll reciprocate with any desire you have. And if that's your desire, ontologically, it can't happen. So if you want something that's kind of not possible due to the truth of your situation, then what do you need? Untruth. If reality can't facilitate your desire, then what do you need? Illusion. In other words, let's say a little boy sees his father driving a car. What is he? He's like 3 years old. What does he want to do? But he can't, right? His body isn't even physically big enough to drive the car. So what does the father do? Gives him a toy car, right? He's sitting in that thing. It's not even it's a cardboard box that like he drew some wheels on or whatever. But it's a reflection of a car, right? The toy car does not exist unless The real car exists first. So Krishna creates a world that's a reflection of the spiritual worlds, wherein we can try to pretend that we're the center of all existence. But in order to facilitate that, it requires a lot of management. And so the first thing, but you know what? He's not interested in managing. There's going to need to be like a whole system of maintenance there. There's going to have to be a water department, a lighting department, a wind department. All of these things need to be there. And but he's not particularly interested in doing that. You know what else needs to be there? Justice department, right? Because these people aren't going to be cooperating with others. And so there's got to be like a justice department there. Do you think he's interested in that? No. If you know what he's doing, when he's waking up, when he's having his breakfast, when he's going off for the day to take care of the cows, the games that he's having with his friends, then he's secretly meeting with the girls, then they come back home and he's lovingly embraced by his parents. They make him a nice meal. All his friends are there. The girls are there watching from the background. Then they put him to sleep at night, pampering him, doting over him with just incredible emotional love in their hearts. Then he sneaks out at night to go be with the girls. They're doing this incredible romantic dance. They're loving, sharing love in the most incredibly wonderful, perfect, most selfless and pure, the purest love expressed in the most beautiful, aesthetic way. You think he wants to come here and become the judge? No, not at all. This isn't God. God's not interested in taking that role. He gives it to others. It becomes outsourced. So either he expands as Vishnu or he empowers the devas, empowers people like us in the universe to take care of these things, right? Because his only interest is adventures of love. So he's still playing. But he becomes Vishnu, becomes the soul of this illusory realm, of the body of this universe, enters into the heart of every living being, and accompanies them through their illusory journey. But it all comes from him. All the energy, just like the sun emanates sunshine, that form of Krishna is the original form, and from that comes the rest of the Vaikuntha planets and the material realm, and all of it is coming from this form of Bhagavan. And until you know that feature, you don't know the impersonal energy. That's all coming from him. The localized form, all that is talking just within the bubble of our small universe. Then beyond that is the big bubble which in all the universes are in. And he's there as Mahavishnu, which is a type of Paramatma. And then beyond that, he's existing in all the different avatar forms on the different planets. But the origin of it all is Sri Krishna and Goloka Vrindavan. And it's these truths in laying out that cosmological map that the Goswamis did. They drew from all the different texts. You're not going to find all of that. You're going to find that mentioned and alluded to in the Bhagavad-gita, that he says there's a realm beyond this that's self-illuminated and so on, that doesn't get destroyed when the material world is being destroyed. So he talks about it, but not in great detail. But you can find it in other books. And then the Goswamis take it all and they put it all and they draw the whole map for us. And if you ever want to read the most incredibly, unbelievably beautiful book, it's the book called the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, written by Sanatana Goswami, where he takes one soul in their travel through all the different levels of the material realm, through the Brahmajyoti, through the Vaikuntha planets, and then finally to Goloka Vrindavan. And have you ever seen this picture of Krishna and he's embracing another boy and the girls are on one side and the cows are there? That's the conclusion of that book when he finally climbs the entire way up to Goloka. And he meets Krishna again. That's Bhagavan. And we have to know who he is. If we don't know who he is, all our past samskars, all our past programming, all our past sufferings and hang-ups and regrets and resentments and so on, if we try to see Krishna through that, we get a distorted vision of who he is. But if you go to Srimad Bhagavatam and read about who he is, then you get a totally different picture. That this person is so sweet. He's He's just waiting for us to turn back, you know, and the love that you can feel will be something that's beyond anything of this world. So that's Bhagavan. That's Bhagavan. And Krishna is saying, like as was said there, he's saying to Arjuna, you're not envious of me. So you can understand when I'm telling you that I'm behind the sun, I'm behind the moon, I'm in the heart of every living entity. I am the ultimate object of worship because I'm your origin. So you could focus what do we have? Really, we don't even have these bodies. They're going to be taken from us. And what we have is our awareness. Now the question is, where are we going to focus that awareness? And Krishna is saying to Arjuna, the best place you can focus, turn it to me. Right? Just like a parent tells a child that's wandered off and now suffering, just come back to me. Reconnect with me. So that's Bhagavan, but we have to know who he is, and then you turn back. You know, when the end of the Bhagavad-gita is maybe the most emotional part of it, where Krishna is saying, I'm telling you this because I love you. I'm telling you this because you're my dear friend. Have you heard my message? Now you can do what you want. You know, you can do what you want. But the reason I'm sharing with this is not because I'm on a power trip. It's because it's what's best for you. And because I love you so much. And then Arjuna says, I've heard what you said. My illusion's gone. And he doesn't say, now I realize I am you. Right? In other words, now he doesn't say, now look at my universal form. You understand? That's the way, if Advaita Vedanta is true, that's what should happen. Now my illusion is gone, and I realize I am God. Here's my universal form. I am the origin I'm the Purusha that's spoken about in the Rig Veda and all this. That's not what Arjuna does. He says, I've heard what you said, my illusion has been dispelled, and I'm prepared to carry out your order. Right? I'm your eternal servant, but not the servant like, not the slave that's being ordered around because the person has selfish desire. Service is the natural response of love. Right? In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this 500-year-old text, really important book on bhakti, the author, this sage, I mean, he's so beautiful and wonderful, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Just the fact that this book emanated through him just tells us so much about who he is. And in that book, he defines what love is. Would you like to hear his definition?
Yes, please.
He says, they write songs about this, right? I want to know what love is. Show me. He says that when the happiness of the object of your love, the person that you love, when their happiness becomes your happiness, that is love. You understand? So, when the happiness of the object of your love becomes your happiness, then that is called love. It means it's entirely selfless, right? A mother can be suffering like crazy, but if her child is fine, then she feels good. If her child is sick, she can't be happy until the child is better, right? And once the child is better, even if she's sick, she'll say, I'll be sick instead of you. Let me suffer instead of you. That's the feeling of a mother, right? That's the closest thing to the spiritual love that we have in this world, where it's entirely selfless. So when we really understand this principle, we'll see that when we say to serve, you see, you serve the one you love. Naturally, every living being is looking for happiness. It's just our nature, because happiness is our nature. When we serve the one we love, they become happy, and then we become happy. Right? That's the strongest way for us to find our own happiness, is by serving the one that we love. So when Arjuna says, I'm ready to carry out your order, I'm ready to satisfy you. What was Krishna's motive? He was trying to relieve Mother Earth and give Arjuna the credit. Krishna could have wiped out the army himself, but he wanted the one that he loves, he wanted him to become famous for it. You see? You really have to know who Krishna is. And you don't know him until you read Bhagavatam. You can read Mahabharata, especially Bhagavatam, and especially when you hear it from people that have realized it and understood it. Then you begin then you begin to, when you see the picture of Krishna, you're like, oh, now I know who he is. Why have I turned my back on him? Right? He's been trying to help me, and I've been so stupid. As a matter of fact, I've been this imposter that's been trying to play his role, but from a selfish perspective. I want to have all these gopis around me, right? And I'm playing out that role, acting as if I'm the central enjoyer and everything should rotate around me. What's the matter with me? I could never be that way. I try, and what do I cause? Suffering for them and suffering for me. I'm playing with emotions of other people. My own emotions are going through all kind of crazy things. A man has one lover, and then he tries to take on another, and immediately everything starts to fall apart. There's just suffering for everybody. Krishna can have unlimited lovers, right? And I'm here as an imposter. Krishna, when he loves everyone, he loves them with complete selflessness. I'm doing it with total selfishness. That's why it's all backward. It's a reflection, but it's backwards. It's upside down, right? Bhagavan is playing it out. Love. The most important thing, if we take this whole universe and squeeze out the important part of it, what's left? It's only love that's left there. All the tedious stuff that we do here, it's got no meaning to us, right? And so this is a reflection, but the whole love has been turned into lust. And by lust, I'm not saying it just like, what I mean by that is it's all becomes selfish. It's all selfish here. And therefore it's a reflection, but it's warped. It's a warped reflection. Or it's upside down or backwards, or however you want to characterize it. And it's like trying to taste that apple, but you can't really taste it. If we cultivate enough good karma, we can taste a little something, right? You cultivate enough good karma, you'll have some sexual satisfaction, you'll have some love relationship that'll give you some, and then it disappears. The bank account of your karma runs out and it's gone. But if we really understand Bhagavan, it's going to point us to what the real truth, the real thing that we're searching for. So there's Bhagavan. He expands his Paramama because someone needs to operate this world, and he doesn't have the time to do it. So he expands himself and becomes Vishnu or Paramatma. And you can know him and love him too. And that's some profound stuff. But if you have an aversion for him, if you have some hesitancy to being the one that's revolving around the center, then the Brahman aspect of him, where it's kind of like you took Krishna and you put him through a filter, and you filtered out all of his personality. Then you have spiritual energy underneath, comes out through the bottom, right? Without all of his characteristics, without his beautiful face, his beautiful smile, his peacock feather, his incredible flute playing, his dancing, his embrace, his aroma, all of that. There's none of that. So you got the spiritual energy, but you don't have his personhood. That's what the Brahman is. It's Krishna restrained of his personality. And the logic of the impersonalist is personality is what causes the problems. The absolute truth must have no personality. But it's not personality, it's the selfishness, right? And so if we can get beyond the selfishness, we enter into the realm of selflessness. And that's the realm of no anxiety. And what's the word for no anxiety? Vaikuntha. Then you enter into the Vaikuntha realm, the realm where there's no anxiety, because there's no selfishness like that. Yeah. All right, we ran out of time. We got one more question. We'll take one more question from Zita.
Hello, everybody. To add just a little bit, what makes me fall in love with Krishna was a lot about hearing about him and how beautiful he walks on this planet and helps other people. And my question is like, where can we get more of this, more of his stories?
Yes.
Are there documentaries, movies about him so we can appreciate him even more?
Yes, what a good question. So the primary place that we go to find out about Krishna is the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, that's where Vyasadeva, at the beginning he reveals he was in this anxiety. I didn't reveal everything. and he's being told by Narada, you have to give all the leelas of the Supreme Absolute, Krishna's leelas. And so he writes 90 chapters of Krishna's life. It's a massive chapter, right? It's 90 it's a massive canto, 10th canto. It's way bigger than all the other. It's like 4 times the size of any other canto in the Bhagavatam. So it's huge. It's what the Bhagavatam is. It's all meant to get you so that you can understand that. And then you hear Krishna's whole life. Not his life as he just demonstrated on this one planet 5,000 years ago. You get to see that play out. So by reading those, and then Prabhupada gave a really good summary of that in the book called Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are other places that we can read about Krishna, but especially we like to read about him from the works of the 6 Goswamis. Their visions of his Leelas. But these are books that are more esoteric. I would recommend reading Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's summary of Bhagavatam first and really understanding it through him. And then you begin to hear these more stories about him from these great acharyas, these great teachers. Other Puranas have some stories about him, but not so much. But especially there's about 4 different bhakti traditions that examine that have what we call Braja Bhakti or Rag Marg, meaning knowing Krishna in that intimate way as a lover, as a friend, and so on. And 2 of the traditions put out a lot of songs, and it's really the songs that they meditate on. And then 2 other traditions put out a lot of literature, particularly our tradition. The Gaudiya, the followers of Sri Chaitanya, put out a lot of literature. And so through these traditions, there's a lot of poetry, drama, songs, and literature. And so in our tradition, especially the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan and their followers, there's a lot of beautiful literature out there, a lot of nice stories you can hear.
Sorry, something soft.
Yes, we still got hands going up, but everybody's okay with going a few minutes late?
Sorry, soft question in it. Why don't we talk about these literature, poems, dramas more? How it feels sometimes like a bit inaccessible, or like it only comes later? Why don't we
It's a good question.
Like with superstars, we want to know everything. We listen to the song. Like there's so much in our face of these people.
It's a very sensitive question. First of all, there's a lot there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So let us learn that first. Around India, a lot of times they have these, they call it a pandal. They make like this big tent. It's like as big as this room or twice the size of this room or even bigger. Sometimes thousands of people come. And there's a speaker on Srimad Bhagavatam. And they call it Bhagavat Saptaha, 7-day telling of Bhagavatam. Every night they come together and they tell. But commonly what they do is they skip all the Bhagavatam. They go right to Krishna's pastimes with the gopis. And people want to hear those stories. And it's the most sacred thing. It's the purest, most beautiful love. And if we approach it from a selfish lens, we don't understand it, right? So therefore it's even like in the Bhagavatam, the name of Radha is not mentioned. Did you know that? Actually, there's just, it's mentioned, but in a hidden way. Because in the scene of the Rasa dance, Krishna's dancing with all the girls, and then suddenly he's gone. And the other girls are trying to find him, and they see there are 2 footsteps, Krishna's and 1 girl. And then there's just Krishna. And they say, oh, he picked her up, and he's carrying her. And they say, whoever this girl is, she's worshipped him better than all of us. She's the best worshiper of him. And the word for worship here is aradhana. Okay? And so that's like, it's Radha that they're talking about. So hidden away. But the reason why they said that she's not mentioned is because if Shukadeva Goswami even mentioned her name, he wouldn't be able to control his emotions and continue telling. Have you ever seen people? I've seen people discuss some very deep relationship they've had in bhakti and break down in tears and then have trouble telling the rest. And Shukadeva Goswami, he wouldn't. So, but the point is like, it's not only sacred, it's erotic, which makes it even more delicate, and more need to protect it, more need to only share it with people that are going to be really respectful of how sacred it is. So there is some hesitancy to speak these things publicly or to jump into them too quickly. Let us first work a bit on our purifying ourselves. At the same time, when you hear the Rasa Leela in Bhagavatam, at the end of it, it says, by hearing this erotic, romantic description, one becomes purified of their lust. So what we really need is we need the right framework to see it through. We need to really understand what it is and have someone hold our hand and walk us through it. And when we do that, there's one famous verse. It was spoken by a king who was a great devotee, and his name was why can't I think of it? The Mukunda Malash Kulashekar. It was Kulashekar. Was it Kulashekar?
King Kulashekar.
It was King Kulashekar. Okay, I don't know why I'm. His guru was Yamunacharya. Whose guru was Yamunacharya? I think it was Yamunacharya that I'm speaking about.
Okay.
I think it was Yamunacharya, who was a king, correct?
Yamunacharya, I don't know.
I'm almost certain it was. And what was his book?
King Kulashekara is
Mukunda Mala Stotram.
Mukunda
But no, but what was Yamunacharya's book? Am I messing it up? I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed that I can't pull this up in my memory right now. I'm hitting my 60s, everyone. Okay, I'm 2 weeks away from my 60s. There's a great acharya, great teacher that was a king, and he, in his early life, was a great devotee of Vishnu. And then he when he became a king, he just lost it because there's so much material opulence. You just, to be a king was meant to be a rock star. Fame, wealth, women, whole thing. So he's like, probably has many beautiful wives, and he just got lost. And but there was one sage that wanted to bring him back, to help him recover his devotion and his clarity. And that sage, he couldn't get to him because it's hard to speak to the king. It's hard to get an audience with him. So he had a strategy. You want to hear the strategy? Yeah. He found this super high quality breed, I don't know, of spinach, super high quality strain of spinach. And he brought that to the king's cook. And he would bring it to him every day. And then one day he held back. He didn't bring it. And then the king said to the cook, bring in the cook. Where's the spinach today? This is such great spinach. I'm having it every day. Where is it today? He said, this sadhu brings it to me every day. And he didn't come today. Bring me this sadhu. Right? And so that's how he got the audience. And when he saw him, then he began to say, my dear king, don't you remember the love that you had for Krishna? You become lost. And he brought him back. And so he had one famous verse, and that was, maybe you can look it up. Google Navanava Rasa. Navanava Rasa. Navanava Rasa. And Yamunacharya, I want to say. Navanava, Nava, and then the next word, Nava, and then Rasa, Rasa. Separate the words. Nava Rasa. Looks like, what if we clicked on that? Let's see what happens when we go there. Look in the commentary. Yeah, here we go. Go. Oh no, is that it? Yeah, keep going down. Oh, yeah, keep going down. Does he say who said it? Thank you. Phew, I know it was Yamunacharya. Okay, here's the verse. Since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving of Sri Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him. Nava means new or fresh or young, right? Nava nava rasa. Newer and newer tastes, newer and newer flavors. Since I brought my awareness to Krishna, I'm getting these newer and newer tastes. It's so fresh and dynamic and sweet and wonderful. You understand? Nava nava rasa. This is where bhakti is meant to take you. This bhakti Vedanta takes you not just to peace, but to nava nava rasa, to newer and newer fresh flavors eternally. Since I have been engaged in the transcendental loving of service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought and my lips curl with distaste. Now, what is this? Is it hang up? Repression? That's not what this is. The point is, he was thinking, it wasn't the sex that he was saying was bad, it was himself. That he took the adi rasa, the pure love that's expressed erotically, and he tried to become an imposter and take it over when he didn't have that purity. So it wasn't love that was being expressed. It was his lust that was being expressed. So why is this? He's saying, now I'm hearing Krishna's leelas, and I'm understanding how beautiful and sacred they are, and I'm looking back at myself and realize what an imposter I've been. Trying to play that role without the love. And his lips curl and he spits at the thought. So the reason I'm sharing that is to say that on one hand, it's very sacred and we're hesitant to share it too broadly and too openly. It's got to be approached with a lot of reverence, carefully approached, hearing it from people that understand it right. It's hot stuff, right? And we believe that even our own lineage almost fell apart because not enough care was shown to this. And it brought in a whole kind of like degradation to the lineage. People didn't respect it. So on one hand, we want to be very careful, cautious. On the other hand, we know that it's actually by reading this that we actually become free of lust. So it's a careful balance. It's a careful balance. But it's very good to get the I would this is, if you want a recommendation from me about how I would approach this, I would read the entire Srimad Bhagavatam and the Krishna book, which is the summary of the 10th canto. I would read the Nectar of Devotion, which speaks about the nature of these types of emotions. I would read the Bhagavad-gita, and I would read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I would put some years in to really get those. Yeah, we can write those down. Yeah. Sure. And so, take 5 years of your life. Yeah, it's nothing. It's nothing. Study this carefully.
And in that order?
Order could be Bhagavad Gita, Krishna book, Nectar Devotion, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Or you could be reading Krishna book at night, and reading the Bhagavatam during the day, or wherever you can find good classes on these. Just study them. It doesn't matter the order necessarily. It would be natural to read Chaitanya Charitamrita after you read Bhagavatam, but even still, it doesn't matter. Charitamrita. I'll share it online here. So if you get a good, strong foundation on that, and you have good teachers, then I think you start to become ready to hear a bit more of the books of the Goswamis. It's really amazing stories. You want to hear some? Yeah. I can't. It would take a long time, but I'll just give you a hint of what they're about, some of them. There's one follower of the six Goswamis named Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he wrote a small book, 4 short stories, which are his meditations, the Leela of Krishna that he sees in his meditations. And it's 4 stories where Krishna plays tricks. One, he dresses up as a girl, singer. One, he dresses up as a snake doctor. One, he hides in the box. And one, he dresses up as Radharani's husband, which is a whole nother subject. I won't get into all that right now. But like with the snake doctor, you see, Radha is actually externally married to someone else. Their love is like Paramore love, which is like the most intense love. When she's married to another man, but she's always thinking of Krishna. But she has this role that every morning she comes and cooks for Krishna. But her mother-in-law is always suspicious something's going on. Her and Krishna, I know it. I can't prove it, but I know it. And so one day she says, Radharani is no longer allowed to go and cook for Krishna in the morning. And then, oh my God, this is just ruining the whole Leela, the whole setup, the whole daily program is like getting messed up here. The whole love thing that's going on here is like someone's getting in the way. So Krishna comes up with a plan. And with the gopis, they make a plan where Radharani got bit by a snake. She's dying. She's like, I'm dying. And then the mother-in-law calls a snake doctor. In India, to this day, they have snake doctors that can relieve you. I've never seen this, but I have friends that have told me they've seen this. And the snake doctor, do you know how they save you from the poison? They suck it out. No. No. You're not thinking on a high enough level here. They talk to the snake. They communicate with the snake, even if the snake's not there. And the snake, I know this sounds crazy, but the snake can withdraw the venom. If Raghunath were here right now, he'd be saying it's all real. But you talk to the devotees that grew up in Mayapur, Gurukula and stuff, they say they've seen this happen. So anyway, Krishna's that kind of snake doctor. And so Radharani's mother calls him. He just happens to be nearby. Help me, help, my daughter-in-law is dying. He says, well, I need to go alone in the room with her, I can't do this. And okay, yeah, whatever it takes. You have to stay outside. Yes. And now Krishna's in the room with Radharani and her friends, the gopis. And they're like, he's inside. It's like, she said, I can't see him anymore. And here he is right in my own bedroom. And then Krishna starts to, in the voice of the snake doctor, starts to say mantras to call the snake. And then he starts to speak in the voice of the snake. And he says, I am the snake, and I am the one that bit Radharani. And then Krishna, as the snake doctor, says, why snake did you bite Radharani? I bit Radharani because Jyotila, the mother-in-law, refused to let her go and cook for Krishna. And then as the snake doctor says, well, then why didn't you bite her? Why'd you bite Radharani? He says, because if I bit her, she would die quickly and her pain would be over. But if I bite Radharani and Radharani dies, then her pain will go on and on and on. And she's like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And then the snake doctor is saying, Krishna is saying, can you withdraw the poison? I will only withdraw the poison if Jyotila promises never again to bar Radharani from going to see Krishna. I promise, I will allow it. And if ever in the future she should ever try to impose such a restriction again, I will bite her and her son and her whole family, Yes, I promise. So it's 4 stories like that. They're very sweet, very beautiful. Some of them are really incredibly sophisticated and detailed. If you ever hear the story about when he dresses up as the girl singer, it's the most incredibly funny. It's got twists and turns in the plot that are just going back and forth. It's got incredible love being expressed to it, and it shows how Krishna conquers the heart of Radharani with incredible creativity, overcoming obstacles one after another after another. When you really learn who Krishna is, you realize there's nothing you can do but love him. Right? But we just need to know who he is, not see him through the fogginess of our own hang-ups. And you see just how beautiful he is. That's Bhagavan. We will stop here. Thank you all so much. We will read Bhagavad-gita tomorrow. And I look forward to that. Thank you very much. Hari Om Tat Sat.